Hello, guys. This is a review of The Boys seasons 1, 2, 3. This has very quickly and easily become one of my favorite shows of all time, right behind Xena Warrior Princess, who actually fits into all of this in a very interesting way that I'll get into a little bit later. I'm not going to be able to go episode by episode since it is 3 long seasons, but I'll get into the main things. I mean, this show is just incredible. Let's summarize the plot very briefly and then I'll get into my opinions. So, if I had to describe The Boys, I mean, in a nutshell, I'd say it's a superhero show for adults. Obviously, viewers' discretion is heavily advised. This isn't a Marvel movie, a DC movie. It's not rated PG-13. So, just keep that in mind. Let's talk about The Boys. We have Butcher, we have Frenchie, Mother's Milk, Huey, and Kimiko. On the side of the superheroes, we have Homelander, Black Noir, Starlight, Queen Maeve, The Deep, A-Train. The show follows the story of the boys. Well, and the superheroes, right? The boys are there to hunt the heroes down because they have this incredible amount of power, and instead of using it for good, they use it, as kids say, for clout. They only do it for Instagram followers, for the promotion, the deals that they're able to get from saving people, quote unquote save. They live very troubled lives, drugs, sex, murders, and I'm talking about the superheroes. So that's the whole point, is they're not there to save the day. They are there to just get whatever it is that they want. They're very selfish. So basically, it's a real depiction of how regular people would react should they have those superpowers. Oftentimes we like to think, well, if Superman was here, he'd do this. Who is to say that Superman or Batman or whatever, why would they want to waste their time saving regular people when they are superheroes that could fly, that have laser eyes, that superhuman strength? Do you really think that they'd be, like I said, spending all that time rescuing people from danger instead of just having fun and letting it all loose? I mean, in my opinion, it's a pretty accurate depiction of what the world would be like, minus the fact that they are very controlled. VOD is basically the main corporation that that is puppeteering the superheroes all along. And there's obviously a lot of romantic links, a lot of comedic relief here and there, a lot of action, and I mean, this is just one of the greatest shows ever that I've ever watched. Let's get started with the main points, and obviously I'll talk a little bit about their motives and everything, but I'm just gonna assume that you already watched it. First topic: Antony Starr and Karl Urban. They are, I would say, the main protagonists of the show. And coincidentally, they're from New Zealand, and they appeared in the show Xena Warrior Princess, who, if you followed my reviews for a while, you should know that Xena Warrior Princess is my favorite show ever. And they were there. Karl played Cupid, he played Julius Caesar, and if I'm not mistaken, he even played another character. He was a recurring character, just not a main one. It's just in certain episodes where he was the antagonist to Xena. And Homelander, played by Antony, he plays, I forget which one, and I just found out through a panel that they did, and he mentions it. I was like, I can't believe it. I would have never known. And he actually talks as if he gave a bad performance. It's not a bad performance in my opinion. I guess I'd have to rewatch it because it has been a while, and I'm talking about his appearance in Xena Warrior Princess. But I bet he's just being hard on himself because his performance as Homelander in The Boys is fantastic. It's otherworldly. So that's the main connection, and it had to the show Xena. Fast forward probably a couple of years, and now I was working. I recently quit my job, but I was working there at the time. I met a coworker, And he told me that his brother got him into this very good show called The Boys. And I was like, well, I've heard of it for sure. Yeah, there's an actor that I recognize from another show. And he said, you have to watch it. It's just so good. You're going to love it. And I tossed the coin and I went ahead and bought it at Best Buy. I mean, for me, everything is an investment because I don't have a lot of money. So I was like, all right, let's go, let's go. And I say, it's going to be all your fault if I don't like it, but I'll go ahead and give it a try. I had high hopes knowing the correlation between the shows and the actors, right? And I fell in love with it. So that's that. The Boys opens up a very serious conversation about real life current events. And one of those is the oversaturation of the LGBT community in media. And we see that through Maeve. Queen Maeve is one of the superheroes, and she is secretly in love with a woman named Elena. No one can know because Homelander was Maeve's boyfriend. Not willingly, everybody's scared of Homelander because he's the craziest of them all and the strongest. But once Homelander finds out about Maeve, he outs her to everybody. And mind you, they promote her as this lesbian queen when in reality she's actually bisexual. And they begin making movies about her being gay. In every interview, they're mentioning that she becomes a symbol of the LGBT community, lesbians in particular. And they never ask her for her permission. I feel like this is something that is done or overdone right now all the time. You find out about a celebrity, they come out and their whole identity now is that. And in my opinion, I think that is something very, very important to talk about. A lot of people say, I don't care who you like, I don't care what you do in your private time, just go here, do your job, kick the ball, whatever it is, whether they're playing a sport or playing a movie, whatever it is that they're doing. Some people don't want to hear about it. And I understand that you are open minded enough to not care about people's sexualities. However, it is important to talk about it because not everybody feels the same way that you do. And while you do not care, since you are heterosexual, there are other people that are struggling and need the open communication, need to let others know we're here and this is a reality of life. However, as I was saying, there are a lot of celebrities, or as it was in this case, unwillingly, they use the celebrities to just sell merchandise. I don't know if any of this is making sense, but what I'm saying is they take out the purity and the honesty of being gay or whatever it is, and they make it into a business. Just be respectful. In general, that's the only way that we could get along in the world. Another topic that The Boys presents is on feminism and survivors of abuse. I recently saw a panel of The Boys, and the actress who plays Starlight mentions or questions, is it to put a woman in a position of power, or is it to feed consumerism, and is it just exhibitionist feminism? So very early on, Starlight's character gets sexually abused by the Deep. She is barely getting introduced to the team called the Seven at VOD, and she is welcomed by the Deep, who tells her that as an initiation process, she has to perform oral sex on him, and that other people do it, and if she's not willing to do it, then they're just gonna let her go and find somebody else to replace her. She doesn't know about them. She doesn't know that the Deep isn't nobody takes them seriously or anything like that. And it's not like she wants the power and the glory. She is more interested in helping people. And really, like, the power that she obtains from it, she plans on using it to change the world for the better. And having the little boys and girls in mind and all the people that she's going to help, she unfortunately does what the Deep wants. And not long after, she figures out that she didn't have to do any of that, that she's strong, maybe even stronger than the Deep, and she can make her own decisions. She doesn't have to play by the twisted rules of some of the members. That's where the whole feminism thing comes into play, because now they want to promote her as the strong, independent woman who does not need any man. And she dresses very provocatively because she doesn't have to cater to any norms or archaic beliefs. And all of that is good, right? But back to the whole celebrity thing. Why is there this necessity to take off your clothes to prove that you are now a woman? I feel, and I know that I don't really have a lot of say in this since I'm not a woman myself, but as someone who has sisters, who has a mom, I feel through conversation, especially with my older sister, I've come to find that, is it really feminism, or are you falling victim to the game that you're trying to destroy? Maybe there are days when you don't want to dress like that, when you don't want to put on all that makeup, and you don't want to do this to your hair, and you don't want to wear a push-up bra, and yet you have to because that's the image that you want to put out there. You don't have to feel forced to do any of that. If people don't like it, then they don't like it. I feel like there's a lot more change that happens when you just sincerely direct your thoughts and emotions to the public in a real way, and you say, hey, you know what, if I want to do this, I'll do it, but I don't have to always take off my clothes. I don't, it becomes this character, exhibitionist feminism, as the actress mentions in the panel. We're living in those times, like young girls and young women have this pressure to over sexualize themselves in order to be seen as a feminist, and you don't have to do that. You could be a stay-at-home mom and still be a feminist, and that's obvious to people who really understand it. But for the people that don't, then, for example, in the show, when Starlight gets into her new costume that she didn't want to wear but she was pressured into wearing, and they're doing an autograph signing, and a little girl asks to take a picture, and while she's taking the picture, these guys are like, hey, show us your tits, Starlight. Sometimes growing up, you're gonna make that mistake. We're all human. However, it's those people, and those people that keep that childish mentality, that don't understand what feminism is really about. Because there's nothing wrong with presenting yourself in a sexual manner at all. I believe that sexuality is I mean, it's why we're all here, right? We need it, and it's very normal and very natural. It's just that when you're enslaved by it, when you feel pressure to overdo it or to cover up, that's when it becomes a problem. You should have the liberty to do as you please and not necessarily to represent anything. It's very concerning the way that reporters or big companies could influence large amounts of people into condemning someone or creating characters out of it. So now let's talk about Stormfront's racism. Stormfront gets introduced to the boys in season 2, and she's a Nazi, so it's obvious why that's so problematic and highly ironic, considering that Mr. Edgar is basically the owner of Vought. And he's black. She obviously has a problem with him, but respects that he's smart, and I feel like her plans are to eradicate the inferior races or whatever, so I feel like he was on her list eventually. There was tension between her and some of the characters even before anyone knew about her, because she was always making these little comments here and there and always like poking at people. What is that saying where they toss a stone and hide their hands or something like that? That's the type of person that she was. And racism is explored in The Boys quite a lot. I want to mention something that Stormfront says when everybody finds out that about her. She says something along the lines of, they believe in everything I say. They believe in it. Truly. They just don't like the word Nazi, that's all. And it's a very interesting, very scary thing. But she's definitely right. People have a problem with everything Hitler related. And rightfully so. We should never propagate violence or anything like that. But if you take that off and you put in the belief that, white people are superior and they are being harassed, more than harassed, directly attacked. So when you strip these racist concepts of their names and the people associated with them, I've noticed that a lot of people actually do think like that. It's like I said, I mean, it's very very wrong, and it's obvious why it's wrong. But going back a little bit to the whole LGBT conversation, I hear a lot from people, oh, it's so much better now. Oh, being gay is okay now. No, it's not. Are you crazy? I worked in schools. I know what the kids say. Is it a lot more accepting? Of course, 100%. But is there really acceptance and genuine support? No. People don't want to be the bad guys, quote unquote. So if the majority of people are posting videos in there with the little flags that you just want to be part of the movement, you want to say, yeah, yeah, I support it, yeah. But when no one's watching, you're making fun of your friend for acting gay or for talking like a girl, or oh, you do this, you do that. There's no real support. And whether or not you would support that friend if they were actually gay, that's a whole different conversation. I feel like the majority of people are just sheep. They're just following whatever the other people are doing. So if being okay with the gays is what's in, then you'll be okay with the gays on a superficial level. And similar to the whole Nazi thing, there's so much racism in the States. I've been lucky enough to not have received direct attacks because I'm Mexican. I mean, I was born and raised in Mexico for the majority of my childhood. But back to the whole point of this, I was treated very well. My teachers gave me all the tools I needed, like the community as a whole. I mean, my neighbors made fun of me, some family members made fun of me, but it was just kids talk. The people that actually had the power to destroy me didn't. They helped me, and I felt like I easily integrated into, this way of life. But recently, when Trump became president, the KKK, neo Nazis, this and that. Where did that come from? Like, I felt like we lived in a bubble. Yeah, progress, Barack Obama, woo, we can do it, everything is possible. And then out of nowhere, all this hate just floated up to the surface, and we were able to see it, though it was always there. In my opinion, politics are a bunch of lies. Whatever people want to hear is what they'll tell you, but what they do is a completely different thing. Kind of like the superheroes and the boys. People idolize them and think that they're superheroes. Oh my gosh, everything is perfect. It's not perfect. We're all human. So oftentimes it's about choosing between the lesser evil, the one that's going to do the least damage. And I mean, I like to trust that there is good in people because I know that there is, right? We're not monsters. It's just like, how much are you willing to help the people, or how much is it just to help yourself? And finding that balance and really believing in, well, voting for people who you really think believe what they say, and is not just a script written by PR. But to idolize a party and then demonize the other, that's so stupid. You say, no, I want to go with this person because this person is saying this and this and that. It doesn't have to be a war. Not everything has to be an argument or a persecution. That's dumb. Moving on to another topic that is actually quite similar: police brutality. So, police brutality is represented through Blue Hawk and A Train. A Train is a black superhero, and he finds out that in the neighborhood where his brother lives, there's a lot of police brutality because Blue Hawk is racist. There's no other way to put it. There's a lot of conversation in today's times where um, there's no respect for police officers. There's fear, and the fear and anger of the people doesn't come out of nowhere. It's because of years and years and years of abuse by police officers, unfortunately, and people higher ranked within the law. There's no way to prove this other than with direct examples. But if you're willing to listen, you'll find that it's actually very true. Being a Latino, they're gonna see you in the streets wearing a little bandana and immediately, oh my gosh, gangster, murder, whatever it is. And unfortunately, the way that you're approached is probably not going to be the same as a white man who is suspected of doing the same thing that another person is suspected of. The treatment is not the same. And this is a very current debate where people are going back and forth. Here's what I have to say about that. This is becoming like I this isn't political. This isn't about that. I just want to share my opinion. And The Boys is, a great reflection of, like I said earlier, of today's times. This is what the show is made of, and that's why I love it. So, my personal opinion is that the system is very faulty because it was created by and for white men. And everything, like even when you go to the doctor, the measurements, average this, average that, that's not the average. Because you go to China, people are not going to, the average height is not the same. You go to India, the average height is not going to be the same, or weight or anything. But everything is made for Caucasian males and females in America. And that's where the whole conversation of, hey, that's not me in the photo comes from. But specifically with police, I have never in my life ever been threatened by a police officer, ever. And in all my life, I've always felt, well, my earlier years, I felt very safe. And whenever there's a problem, I've had problems at my previous job where I had to call the cops several times. There was just no other way, very aggressive and non-compliant teenagers were trying to wreck up the park that I worked at. So, I mean, I'm not going to beat them up. You need the cops for those type of situations. My opinion is that there should just be retraining from the core. Retraining, cameras everywhere to make sure that people are following the rules that are not taking advantage of the power that they have, especially being able to carry weapons. Like they are responsible for doing what they're supposed to be doing. But when there's no accountability, then people they just do what they want, really. Something very interesting and that's very human and adds to this conversation a bit. Ashley, she rubs it in A-Train's face that how come the crimes, because A-Train is complaining, Blue Hawk is doing this and we need to do something about it. And that actually turns out crazy because he ends up hurting A-Train's brother, but that's a whole different thing. I mean, at the beginning of the show, The Boys is how Huey gets introduced to The Boys, because A-Train runs over his girlfriend, completely destroys her. She explodes because he's running at such a quick speed, and he doesn't even say sorry or anything. He just keeps running. And Ashley mentions that to him. She's like, oh, so when you did all those crimes, it wasn't important. But now since it directly affects you, you're so invested in it and you want justice. Ashley's like, that's right. I said it out loud. The show is so funny. I know that I'm going over a lot of very serious topics because, like I said, those are major components of the show. The show is a recollection of today's times, today's struggles and realities. But it's super fun. It's done in a way where it's not like, look, you have to do this, you have to. No, it's craziness, it's absurdity, it's comical. It sprinkles these topics here and there, and you just have to be really dim to not understand them. For example, when Antony Starr, the guy who plays Homelander, has mentioned, it always baffles me when people are supporting Homelander and like they love him and everything. He's like, are you stupid? Like, don't you know that's a whole point, what not to do? And I understand what he's saying, but for example, as a fan that I am, I love Homelander. I love his performance and I love his character. However, in real life, no, not at all. And that's where this confusion comes from. If you are a person who believes what Homelander believes, who believes what Stormfront believes, and you are very troubled. There's just no other way about it. I could listen to anyone explain their reasonings, but there's no excuse for murder or abuse. There's just, nothing of substance is going to change my mind to believe, oh yeah, that's right, go crazy and kill people for fun. Heck no. So, but putting that aside, the character itself is very fun. It's very fun to see how he loses it every time. But yeah, and then in the show, there's also systemic racism presented mm, through Mother's Milk's story with Soldier Boy, and how through generations he's been abused, and the difference in his reality and someone like Starlight. When he's talking to her, he's like, it's so different for us. But if I go into that, I'm just gonna be here all night. So let's go to our next topic: child abuse and trauma. We see Butcher and Frenchie experience that. Butcher, he grew up in a household where his father was strict and violent. He beat his brother up to a point where he took his life, and he caused Butcher to want to escape and join the military, I think. It's it's something that a lot of people live. I've seen it myself with my own eyes. I've seen it, and it's really messed up. It's not fair for you to beat up a kid who is not able to defend himself or herself. I understand the anger. We all have anger. We all have issues. We have troubles and desperations. But there should be other outlets. A child is not going to give you a valid reason to attack him, because it isn't as if you were in danger, you were protecting yourself, or life and death situation. Very few times, I mean, there are child murderers, but that's extreme. That's very rare. In most cases, it's just adults not being able to handle real life stresses or their own childhood traumas. Frenchie, on the other hand, he was also heavily beat by his father, and it caused him to create this dependence and, in a way, sick pleasure like masochism. He becomes sexually aroused when he's treated like trash, and there's a scene where that is exposed with little Nina, this person that he used to work for. It's one of the heaviest, in my opinion, scenes. One of the many heavy ones, but it's up there because she exposes his situation and says, "Oh, Sergey likes when I do this, likes when I do that." And sure, if you like it, you like it. You can't escape. I read a book. What was the book called, where it said that it's okay to relive traumas in a healthy, safe environment through sex with someone that you trust. A lot of people say, no, if you suffered abuse, and go get away from that. But apparently, this book says that it's very healthy to receive that sexual gratification through role play of abuse or whatever it is that it may be. So, I mean, who's to say? But right there, Frenchie doesn't want to be there. They have Cherie and Kimiko tied to a chair, and he's defenseless, and they're saying all these things. They're like, oh, choose someone to kill. It has to be one of them. It's very crazy and very unfair for people, because we see Frenchie, we know who he is and how he is, and he's a good person who has done a lot of bad things, but he's a good person who was put into these situations through pressure, lots and lots of pressure. And it's so unfair the way he was treated. Which brings me to another super sad scene, which was when they killed Kimiko's brother. So everybody considers him a terrorist. And as when they were kids, they were kidnapped and forced to take V to become super terrorists. It wasn't their fault. And Stormfront is the one that kills him, and it's one of the saddest scenes for me. I freaking hate it. So when they beat up, and one of my favorite scenes is when the girls Maeve, Starlight, and Kimiko beat up Stormfront and almost kill her. Oh gosh, that was so satisfying. Ah, that was amazing. So good. Because the torture that she inflicted on people is crazy. It's how could it be so sadistic? It's unreal. And it's so like creepy to know that there are people who would do that if they had the power. So the Deep, let's talk a little bit about him. He plays a character that we could say he's bad, but he's annoyingly bad. He doesn't know how bad he is because he's so dumb. He has always lived in this environment and has behaved the way that he has for so long that he just doesn't bat an eye when people call him out on it. He has no loyalty for anyone whatsoever. He's just always, if you watch the show, you know what I'm talking about. They're like, oh yeah, he's my best friend. Like, yeah, he's got to go. The Church of the Collective doesn't represent him. Yeah, fuck him, sir. Like, it's so funny, but so sad because he just doesn't have a, he's not a very intelligent person, and a lot of people take advantage of that. I'm sure if he was under the right guidance, he would be a completely different character, but nobody lends a hand. Nobody talks to him and explains how his actions have real consequences on real people. And it's not just about him. I don't know if he's also narcissistic, but I feel like more so it's just that he's not very smart. So he's, taken advantage of quite often. The way that Homelander treats him, even though he is a butthole, it sucks. I don't like it. I don't like seeing him get humiliated. Only after he does something really bad, just for a little gratification, like haha. But I mean, in general, no. I think that he could be saved. Now, Homelander, he's quite a character. He lacked a lot of nurture growing up. He was raised in a hospital with no real motherly or fatherly love, which then connects to season 3 with the emergence of Soldier Boy, who turns out to be his father. And he presents toxic masculinity at its finest. That's another thing that people are like, why are people loving Soldier Boy? This is another topic, the whole toxic masculinity thing. There is a confusion with people that think that men should be feminine, and it's not that you should not be masculine. That's not the problem. I just want to put it out there. Toxic masculinity is having a feminine side to you, feminine qualities, a feminine taste, whatever it is, and not being able to express it or live it just because of what people are going to say, just because it's frowned upon. That's a problem. So let's say you're a guy and you're like, oh gosh, those shoes are like purple with pink. I really like them. But I can't wear them because what are my friends going to say? That's a problem. Or wanting to treat your wife with respect and show her love in public, and people are like, why are you being like that? She should do whatever you say, not ask her for her opinion. That type of stuff. That's toxic masculinity. When you know deep inside you could be heterosexual to the gills. I mean, it's not about sexuality, it's just about some things, right, that are not as masculine as others, but you having to pretend that you are in order to fit in with society's standards. That's a problem. But if you are the stereotype of a masculine man and you have a hard working job and you go home to eat and wife takes it, that's awesome. If that's your life, if you provide for your family and you're happy doing that, your family is happy with you, that's all that matters. You do whatever it is that you want to do. That's the whole point. But if you want to shed a tear watching Titanic, you shouldn't be condemned for it, is all that I'm saying. So I could go all night talking about all the different topics within the boys universe. It's just so much going on. But thankfully I already got my feet wet doing seasons 1 to 3. And when season 4 comes out, I'll review per episode or every couple of episodes, more or less. I'll see how that goes. And that should be a lot more specific to the story. Every character has its story and its importance, and no story is boring, at least to me. It's so fun, so gory, as Butcher would say, so diabolical. It's so great. I'm so thankful to my ex coworker who actually got into the show because of his brother, who I also met. So thank you to you guys. I really don't think you'll be watching this, but if you are, I've already said thank you to your face, but thanks again. I would recommend it to everybody who's mature enough to watch this because this is, an adult show. It's so great. So funny. The show is everything. I promise that I'll get into the story a lot more next time, those characters and their actions and consequences and everything. I just wanted to put this out there so that I could have the availability to start fresh on the next season. I would obviously rate all the seasons 10 out of 10. It's a joy to watch, it's a pleasure, and I believe that's it for this one. Thank you for watching.